pretty inevitable what was going to happen, given the takeovers and the need for the population to keep trying something. So I guess my question was, is there anything that the town could have done, the town, not the larger system of takeovers and government and industrialization, is there anything the town could have done to stop this, given that they were pawns in the game? And also, a second part of that question is there, have people approached you, because you seem to lay it out very clearly, and it's pretty obvious from reading the book, have people approached you and said, oh, yeah, you have the information, why don't we do X?
Preemptively, I don't know that the town could have done anything. Probably doesn't matter because it's history, right? And what's happened has happened. I think that what the town was able and is able to do, they have done, which is to approach this by saying this is primarily an economic question. An economic question becomes a cultural one and a social one, and one of a psychic question. There's this kind of enduring sense of low morale and stuff and so what we're going to do is we're going to tackle the economy, and that's what they've done. It's actually, never mind the fact that there's this, I don't know what we call it anymore. Is it a recession or a depression or whatever it is? Never mind that whole thing. Even in the best of times, what they have done to buck the trend of the last 3 decades by adding a lot of jobs, high-paying jobs, and adding a lot of several new sources for education in the area is astounding. And so I think they've done everything that they can, and they've done it to wonderful effect. What has happened is that they've essentially there's been a little bit of a role reversal. The town 15 miles from them that used to be sort of the polished of the two, the one, Oelwein was sort of had a smudge on its face, and Independence had, was kind of sort of, duded up or whatever. They have not anticipated what was going to happen. And now Oelwein's meth problem has essentially moved down the road to Independence. And so, the point being that as remarkable and as heroic as it is, I think what Oelwein has been able to do just in the last 24 months, there's still, it's a question of a system, of a deck that's stacked against them. So like how long can you ask these people to continually sort of perform the same Sisyphean task? It's
saying it's going to the next town forever. There is no reason why that town is different than any other.
Yeah, and I think that eventually, if Oelwein doesn't somehow continue to grow financially, then it's just going to come right back. And and this is the problem in many ways of the stagnant economy of the region. How can you, the whole notion of like constant growth in a place that is depopulating and that industries, how do you manage that? I don't know. That's sort of what my next book is about. It's sort of part 2 to a 2-part thing, which is what's going to happen. Not sure.
My question is, what kind of penalties were imposed upon the people engaged in these activities, and were there any treatment options available for the addicts? Like, if you can go into that. Thank you.
The prosecutor who the book follows has long been a big advocate of drug courts. I don't know if you have them out here, but essentially it says that, the reality is that in the state of Iowa, if you, let's just say that, you're caught manufacturing meth with the intent to distribute, then there's a 99.9% chance that you will never go to trial. You will take a plea bargain, because when there's not money to do things like keep the roads in good repair and even potentially keep the street lights on at night, there's no money to try people. I mean, trials are expensive. So, a county prosecutor has to adjudicate things outside of a courtroom, essentially. And the other, it's like all the sort of tough sales political stuff about, like, we're going to put people in jail. Well, the reality is, if you get a 6-year sentence for manufacture and distribution of meth in the state of Iowa, you'll be out of jail in 9 months, because there's no room for you. And there's no money to feed you while you're there, essentially. I mean, this is I'm speaking broadly. But, so what do you do in that? Well, the county prosecutor has long been an advocate of these drug court things, which is to simply say, look, what we say we can do, we really can't do. So instead of, let's just call bullshit and try something new, And what drug courts do, and they have shown tremendous success in many places, the state of Missouri is one of them, it says, we are going to, for a period of 18 months, we're going to sort of put you under supervision of the court. And your job is to get treatment as it is available, to hold a job and not to do what you were doing before. And we will monitor that. And, the notion, I think, is a very good one. That's about all there is available there. It's not like you can go to, Trembling Hills or whatever it is. There isn't one of those in Fayette County, Iowa. I mean, you can't, there's no rehab place. So I think this is a very good option.
How long did it take before like a collective intervention was necessary? When did the bubble bust and the dream blew away?
Which dream was that?
In this town. The euphoria, the economic gain. When did the horror stories begin after the inception of the drugs?
I think, kind of 02, 03 is sort of was kind of the bottom, I think. And so if you sort of begin the timeline in 79 or 80 with the farm crisis, and then and the ensuing loss of the railroad and the meat packing plant, which happened in the next 10 years, then I think this particular part of it sort of came to roost by about 2000, 2002. So it didn't take very long.
All right, I think we're going to take maybe one more, and then I'll preemptively invite everyone who wants to ask Nick other questions to do it, but you have to buy a book.
You have to, right, and it has to be a one-part question.
You get a question. You buy 2 books, you get 2 questions.
Let me make this a quick one and a tough one, and see if he can think on his feet. I'm just thinking that undoubtedly you must have found yourself thinking about the points of connection between socioeconomic class and opportunity and addiction and choices. And I say this because my premise is distinct from what you've said about meth. I mean, people in rural communities, dying communities, people without economic opportunity have been getting high on whatever they can obtain for a long time, as have people in rich cities who have no money. And I'm thinking you must have thought from time to time, there but for the grace of God, what is different about me? Why did I not succumb to some temptation to feel, to feel satiated or blissful or whatever it is? Did you find yourself thinking about those things, about the very nature of addiction and opportunity and why we live the lives we do?
And so you mean why at the time I was reporting, or why when I was growing up did I not?
You must have thought back. You must have thought back about your growing up.
Yeah, and I'm actually exceedingly, in some ways, or try to be well versed in what you're talking about. My wife is a recovering alcoholic, so I mean we have a lot to talk about in that regard, and I I think one of the realities of this is that where I grew up outside of St. Louis is an area that can absorb the associated cost of this better than a small town can, because there's simply more money around to a certain extent. In terms of me individually, I don't know. I mean, I think it's impossible not to think, how did this not happen? I don't really have an answer for you, except that, some of the cliches that I think, take to be truisms about, multiple difficulties, maybe you come from a one-parent household, or you come from a one-income household, or maybe there's been abuse, maybe there's been any number of other things. None of that stuff happened to me personally, and I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm not quite sure where I'm headed with that. I mean, but I didn't. I guess I didn't dwell on it too much.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank you all for coming out, and I thank Nick Redding for being so generous with his time.
Thank you very much.
Thank the extraordinary Strand bookstore, and again, this is an exceptional book, well worth picking up and getting.